Loves that Zman Chatterbait with that Kitech on there. Loves it. Nice fish.
All right, guys, what's going on? That's right. I created a overly detailed trailer breakdown for the Zman Chatterbait, the Jackhammer. It was fun. I jumped into my swimming pool, put on some different trailers of the Jackhammer and swam them underwater with some GoPro footage. So let's check it out. First, we got the Kitech. This is my go-to. Love the Kitech. Fat swing impact, I use usually the 4.3 or the 4.8, depending on how big of the profile I want to go with. But I love this this trailer here. I love the paddle tail action. I know some people don't like a paddle tail with a bladed jig. The bladed jig is supposed to create that own motion. That's why a lot of people go to the Zako. And I use the Zako as well, but there's something about the paddle tail I absolutely love, especially the Kitechs. The Strike King Rage Swimmer, right? This is very similar to the Kitech, okay? Looks very similar to it. I mean, me personally, there's just a confidence thing with going with the Kitechs. As you can see here, they have a lot of that same kicking motion. When I later broke the video down and I went into a slow-mo version, I noticed a couple details. I'll talk about those a little bit later. The Kickin' Zako Swim Bait, Yamamoto Baits. Now this is one that I was really excited for, and this is kind of what triggered the whole idea of making this video. I always fish the Zako. I wanted to see what the Kickin' Zako was like and how that compared to the other swim baits, kind of like the Rage Swimmer and the Kitech. But as you can see here, it looks great. The profile looks really, really good. One thing that I picked up from the video was how responsive the paddle tail was upon entering the water. You'll see here when this thing drops, imagine you cast this out, it hits the water. It's gonna drop straight down and that tail starts kicking right away to get that reaction bite. You know, the fall is a majority of where I notice a lot of the bites are. The Zman Diesel Minnows. Now, this is a trailer I've used before. I love it when I have to rip a chatterbait through pads or grass that Elastec just withstands the abuse. But when I made this video, there was something that stood out to me of why I would use the Zman Diesel Minnows for a different technique. And sometimes what I like to do is I like to bounce it on the bottom. Now you notice how that Elastec stands up. It doesn't fall as quickly, right? And it looks more like a bottom feeding than falling to the side as some of the other trailers do. The Zako swim bait, a lot of people use this. It's not a paddle tail, but I wanted to capture some footage of it. You can notice the tail is a bit more reactive to the blade of the jig versus paddling on its own. So it looks a little bit more uniform. I've caught fish on both the Zako and the Kitech. The Zako is probably my second go-to. I love ripping this thing on the edges of grasses and on pads and just burning it over grass. It's one of my favorite things to do. All right, guys, so that's that. Now, the rest of the video, what I did is I slowed the video 2 times down. And some really cool details started to come through to our overly detailed description of trailers for a jackhammer, right? I'm gonna point some of those out and you can watch that slow motion video if you really want to. But the things I noticed was the ribs on the Kitech are a little bit more defined than that of the Strike Kings. So what my theory is that the skirting doesn't adhere, or kind of like when it's going through the water, doesn't go against the plastic as much. Just little details. And I also noticed in the slow motion that the Kitech had a little bit more of a body wobble to it than that of the Strike King Rage Swimmer. I don't know, we're talking, you know, we're splitting hairs here. Also pay attention to looking at the Z-Man. That Z-Man, which is really cool when it goes down and it hits the bottom, and I never knew this until I watched the slow motion of it. When that Z-Man hits the bottom, that tail sticks up, so it kind of looks like a fish is bottom feeding. So if you're using the technique of a chatterbait of just kind of moving it along the bottom, tying on a Zman diesel minnow might work for you, because that Elastec has a little bit more of a floating tendency to it, right? Check out the Zako, the Kickin' Zako in slow motion. It's cool. It's got that paddle tail feel. Don't know if I'm completely convinced if I'm gonna go paddle tail. I still probably gonna just go with the Kitech. If I'm gonna go with a Zako, I'm probably still just gonna go with the traditional Zako. That's a little bit more reactive to the bladed jig. So check it out, guys. That's all I got for you. Hope you enjoyed the video, the overly detailed video on jackhammer trailers. All right, we'll catch up with you. Take care, guys. Bye.